So I'm back. Welcome back. Thank you. I was gone for about a week, and this is going to be a pretty short video. I sort of just wanted to touch base and talk about the trip, where I was, and what I learned. First thing I learned when I got back is that 10 subscribers, woohoo, new milestone. I'm probably going to end up talking about Molyneux at some point in the future, given that people seem to like that, the people that watched that video, the last one. But this video specifically, I just wanted to explain a little bit about what's going on in the world, at least. I mean, you hear this stuff in the news, like Ukraine, and there's a war, and Russia, and all this stuff, and being Ukrainian myself, I feel like that puts me in a pretty convenient position to pass judgment on everything and be perfectly correct and objective without having any sort of political bias. Well, okay, that's not true. But it does put me in an interesting position, because you see, most people don't even know what Ukraine is. You know, you go tell them, it's like, what's Ukraine? Is that a country? Is that a state? Is that a type of sauce? And then you have other people that are like, wait a second, what's Ukraine? Isn't that the same thing as Russia? Aren't Ukrainians the same things as Russians? No, and don't let them catch you saying that. They'll get pretty upset. So yeah, I'm Ukrainian, and I was in Ukraine for a week. That's why there wasn't a new video. I was visiting family, and I went there, and the more astute of you might immediately assume, well, why would you go to Ukraine? That country's literally falling apart at the seams as we speak. Well, not exactly, but yeah, there is a war, because there's terrorists, or what they're calling terrorists, in the West that are destroying homes and then burning villages and killing people and torturing soldiers. And the idea is that Russia's behind all that. Meanwhile, Ukraine, they just want independence, and they want to be part of the European Union and all this stuff. So I'm not going to talk about that conflict specifically, although if you ask me, I'm on the Ukrainian side pretty... I'm on the West side. I'm not buying into the ridiculous propaganda that the Russian media was spinning about this stuff, and you'll hear a lot about that if you go over there. Anyway, the country itself, pretty much the quintessential second world tier country. You know, it's not too good, it's not terrible, you know, it's not Africa, it's not, well, you know, no, it's not Africa. It's not something horrible. But it's also not what you have here. It's kind of cool if you go over there, because then you'll realize all the stuff that we take for granted here in the West. Like, you know, the way supermarkets work, and the way subways work, and the way driving works, and the way the internet works, and all that stuff. So that was cool. Me specifically, I was in Kiev. That's where a lot of my family lives. That's the capital city of Ukraine. So I'm going to talk about that. Kiev, it's a pretty big city. It's about the same size as, well, it's about the same population as Toronto. It's a lot smaller, although. It's a lot smaller, and the outskirts of Kiev, it's kind of weirdly built. Like, you have a city, and then outside of it you have forest, and then outside of that forest you have more, like, cities. But they're not like cities, they're like suburbs, like we have here in, I mean, we have here in the West, is you have, like, the city, and then the city just spans on for miles, and you have suburbs going off in all direction, and then farmland, and then forest once you get really, really, really far. Here we have city, then forest, then suburbs, and then farmland, and it's just like, it's really weird the way it's built. It's probably because the city hasn't actually grown out as much as it's grown up. You know, there's a lot of housing. There's no, like, private housing. There's no, like, you know, small private housing in Kiev. It's all just like massive apartment buildings, right? So yeah, there's that. The way I'm going to do this actually is going to be sort of a pro and con type of thing. If you ever plan on going to Ukraine, and there are genuine reasons why one would go to Ukraine. You know, it's not, you know, it's a reasonable place to visit. If you visit places in Europe, it's a reasonable place to visit. It's a pretty old city. It's older than Moscow. You know, it has tons of history, tons of old European architecture style stuff. Well, I'm going to get to that. The point is, there's I'm going to talk about this like pros and cons. Pros and cons of a second world country. So the pros is the architecture and the churches, and there's like 50-something churches in Kiev, and they're these massive Orthodox churches with these like golden globes on top. They're absolutely huge. In the center of the city, you have like you have like a plaza made out of brick, and you have a statue, and you have like churches on either side of it, and it's like massive, looking over a hill. The entire city's built on top of a hill, right? And there's like a river near it, and there's churches overlooking the river, and the center of the city is really, really nice. You could walk around there as a tourist, and it's pretty cool. And there's tons of tourists there actually, and you can take pictures and photographs and look at all the neato mosquito buildings and constructions, and it's all pretty modern as well as far as Europe goes. If you go to downtown Paris, it doesn't look that different from downtown Kiev, minus the occasional landmark. Like you can recognize that an Orthodox church is different from a non-Orthodox church, or you could recognize the Eiffel Tower. But other than that, like the actual just the basic buildings that are there, a very European style. Or if you go to like Finland and you go to Helsinki, it's literally built exactly the same. The only way to tell the cities apart would be through the landmarks, right? That's a pro. Let's go over to the con side of this, because being someone who was born in Kiev and lived there for a long time, and then came over here and lived here for a long time, going back there, I noticed the differences. So I wasn't staying in the center of the city. I wasn't staying in this architectural, old, magnificent European wonderland. I was staying, near the outer parts of the city. If you leave the center of the city and you cross that river, and you go over to where my grandmother lives, which is where I was staying, it's pretty shitty, I have to say. So you pretty much have these massive, okay, I shouldn't say massive, they're not even, they're colossal in how horrible they are. You have these epic Soviet housing units that are just, they're decades old at this point. Decades. They literally have not been updated in like 30, 40 years at least. They're run down and old, and the walls that used to be white are basically black right now, for the most part. Black with, splotches of gray. That's basically what you're dealing with. And it's not, and it's not like the grass is being kept neat outside, and it's not like there's nice trees or any of that shit, or nice pavement. No, it's all like run down and upside down and backwards and left and stupid. It doesn't even make sense how someone can live there and enjoy themselves. It's horrible. It's horrible. There's like unkept gardens. There's like vegetation growing all over the place. And what the thing about Ukraine is that the entire country is built on this like this swamp pretty much, and it's this really fertile soil. So vegetation just grows out of that shit like crazy, and it covers the lawns, and you have all these weeds and ferns, and it just looks unappealing. It looks very, very Soviet Union. If you picture Soviet Union, if you play like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1, and there's that level where you go to what's that place? The place in Ukraine that exploded. Oh, god damn it, I'm forgetting the name of it all of a sudden. What was its name? Well, anyway, that nuclear place that exploded, right? Pretty much looks exactly like that. And I'm like, the way that level looked in that game, it basically looks exactly like that. Minus the nuclear fallout, hopefully. But yeah, it kind of looks like that. It's pretty run down. It's pretty shitty. And it's pretty shitty because there's still people selling shit on the streets, like at a bazaar. The country doesn't really have bazaars anymore, like massive ones, but there's still like tiny stalls and like old people who just like take their like homegrown vegetables and allotments and just spew them all across on the street in a rag and then just sell them. And it's just like, what am I seeing? You don't see this shit happening over here. This is some third world country tier shit. Like, honestly, it's ridiculous. And they're all old, and there's a lot of drunkards, and and there's stray cats running around all over the place, and there's like stray cat families. I remember my grandfather used to like go out and sit on a bench and just like play with the cats, the wild cats, the ferocious wild cats of Kiev, denizens of that jungle, and he would just do that. It's really weird. The other part of it is that the city's actually built sort of in blocks. You have like you have a block, right? We know what a block is here, but the block there is different. It's like a block basically has like four, it's like a square, right? You have 4 apartment buildings on each side, and in the middle you have like a playground and maybe a school and maybe some other crap, and like some overgrown vegetation all over the place, right? And these houses just look horrible. And in the inside, in the square, you always have like kids playing on a playground, which are rusty and like forked, and they're just like, they're razor sharp, and they're red because of the paint is all chipped off, and it's ancient, it's prehistoric, it's archaic, right? So that stuff is not pretty. And I used to live in that stuff. You know, I remember playing in these playgrounds and shit. Those are quite the days. I'm glad to have gotten past that. Very grateful now for having entered the first world. Oh, yeah. So that's the housing, the outward appearance part of it. Let's talk about. Actually, okay. There's one thing I forgot to mention, but well, I mean, it's pretty obvious. But these houses are not nice on the inside either. Like they're not. I mean, an individual room could be nice because the people who live in that room take care of it, but the stairwell and the elevator and all that shit, it's like horrible, and it reeks. It stinks of decade-old urine. It's horrifying, and it's cramped and tiny, and there's no room to anything. There's no room to swing a cat. Like, I've outgrown it, is basically what I'm saying. Let's talk about the food. The food. Oh dear God. So the pro of the food is that it's basically all organic. There's no preservatives, there's no pesticides, none of that stuff. You know, Ukraine is pretty much one giant farm for all intents and purposes. It's one giant allotment patch because it has very, very fertile soil. My grandmother's sister grows her own crops, and she goes to work too. This isn't like her job. She goes to work, comes home, and she has like an entire allotment patch in front of her house. And she doesn't live in Kiev. She lives like away from the city. And she just like, she takes all those vegetables and just cooks them and eats them. So they're all organic, and they're super, super nutritious. The problem with them is that they're too organic. One could say that they're super organic. What I mean by that is if you're used to the cuisine here, where it's all pesticide and herbicide and preservative, and it's really less nutritious than than the stuff you have there, your body might not digest the food there quite easily. Namely, I'm thinking squirting Hershey up and down the street for a week. Yeah, that bad. Anyway, the other part of it is that anything that they sell there is untrustworthy. And this doesn't just include food. I mean, there's not that many malls. I mean, there are malls, they're building malls now. But the very idea of a mall is sort of a new concept for them. It's something that's sort of just flourishing over the last decade or so. And it's still flourishing at this point. It's not ingrained yet. The actual food there, like the meat, you can never trust a meat vendor, for instance. Not necessarily. If you find one of the guys on the streets, you can't trust them. You maybe can trust some of the smaller supermarkets that they have. But see, that's the point. You can't be super trustworthy of who you buy what from, because it's pretty much, it pretty much all works on the honor system right now, where it's like, I made this and I can guarantee you that it's good, and if not, no repeat business. There's no like massive conglomerates and companies that manage trade, so there's that small risk. Actually, no, this is more of a risk for restaurants, especially international restaurants, and there's not too many of those, but they do actually have lots of sushi. It seems sushi has made its way into all corners of Western and Eastern and all sorts of civilization. The world loves sushi. They love sushi here, but I've heard stories about how people have had sushi there and it ended up fucking them up. Excuse the language, but it ended up being very, very bad. Like the fish was raw and it had like worms in it or some crap. I don't know. But the point is, you best be careful if you go to a restaurant there that sells something like that. I didn't go to one, so I wouldn't know. But that's just saying. And I think that's the only international food that's there. Speaking of food, I could actually talk about Ukrainian food in general. Because most people, okay, Ukraine isn't even a country. What kind of food do they have? Well, again, it's like, I mean, it's very... It's hard to describe. There's obviously borscht. You've heard of that if you've heard of Eastern European culture at all. They have that in Russia. They have that like everywhere. The entire Slavic nation has borscht. And borscht pretty much it's like vegetable stew with beets and meat and all this stuff. And I don't know what makes it different from any other kind of stew particularly. Other than that, it's called borscht. You know, there's a lot of vegetables in all the cuisine that they make. There's a lot of, I don't want to say there's a lot of meat, but there's not too much meat. There's more vegetables and grains and stuff that they sort of put together, and there's lots of pies and lots of, like, pierogies is something that they actually came up with. I think it was Ukraine. It was either Poland or Ukraine, but that's one thing. You know, they like to put stuff inside bread. You can't just have, I mean, there's bread, basic bread, but they really like taking bread and just like jamming shit inside, right? And then eating stuff like that and eating like clumps of bread and like, oh, they like putting sour cream on everything. And this, honestly, not even a joke, but literally take sour cream and just throw it on the table. Just a giant pool of sour cream. And Ukrainians will eat that shit, okay? They love sour cream. Personally, I'm not a big fan, but my grandmother, they love sour cream. They were having vegetables with sour cream, for God's sake. And they have just like, they'll have like, I don't even know what it's called, but it's like, they'll make like goat cheese and then put raisins in it and then wrap it in a bun and wrap that in like some, like a pancake and eat these like pancakes with goat cheese inside them. And it's pretty good. There's just a lot of it. I think the main difference that I've noticed though is that rather than what we have here, where it's sort of like you go to a restaurant, you order a meal, and they give you a meal and there's like the appetizer and then there's an entree and then there's like a dessert and then the entree is structured in a certain way. Well, there's like the main element, which is like some sort of meat, and then there's like rice or bread or pasta or something around it and like a salad as well, right? Here, they don't do that. They don't have everything centered around one course where it's just like this one pillar of meat that the entire idea of the meal is centered around. Instead, what they have is they have a little bit, they have like the pancake thing and then the salad thing and the borscht thing, and then they take everything and just put it all on a table and you take a little bit of everything. You know, they can't just have one type of meal. You need to have 12 types of meals. They're all on a table and you pick whichever one you want. And at a dinner party, there's going to be like a bunch of different kinds of foods and you just have to take a little bit of everything. Kind of disturbing because not all this food goes together well, at least in my opinion. So when you have some of it and then you have to take other, just to not be hungry, it just like upsets the stomach. It's like, I just ate like this pancake bread thing. I don't want to eat this other like pie, strawberry berry pie thing with yogurt. Like, I don't know. Okay. It could just be the way my grandmother cooks, honestly, but it seems to me like every time I've been there, every time I've been over to Kiev, they've always made this, they always have this habit of just putting a little bit of everything instead of just a lot of one thing. And that twists it up. Personal opinion, but there you go. That's Ukrainian cuisine in a nutshell. What else can we talk about? Okay. Let's talk about the city some more. I just want to say there's like only a few more points that I have about this, about Ukraine. One thing is that the city is actually really, really fun. There's a lot of stuff to do. There's a lot of little restaurants. It's, like I said, it's very, very modernized. You'll find something to do if you're a young person. You know, there's lots of ice cream stalls, for instance, which is something we don't really have here in Canada. That's where I am. In Canada, there's like, I mean, you'll find an ice cream shop every once in a while, but here you have an ice cream stall. like every other block, and you can just go anywhere you want to just get ice cream, and that's pretty cool. They really like ice cream over there for whatever reason. They adore ice cream. I don't know why, but they do. They also have the same thing with coffee. They have all this different kind of coffee. They have coffee stalls every other block. That's not atypical. We have that here, but we have coffee restaurants, and honestly, we have coffee restaurants under a brand name like Starbucks or Tim Hortons or something of that sort. They have like coffee restaurants and all different kinds of coffee restaurants, and they have like cars that just sell coffee, and there's all this weird kind of coffee. I don't know why. Again, it's just like the city has an obsession with coffee. So that's cool. That's pretty awesome. I didn't try any of the coffee. I had some of the ice cream. That was okay. Again, it's a taste sort of thing. So that stuff's good. In the city facilities, you know, you have decent transportation. You have for bus, subway, tram. You have free internet in a park. You know, that's where I was. There was a park with free internet. That was fun. I don't even know if there's free internet like that anywhere here. There's free internet at the university that I go to. That's not quite the same. Here there's free internet in like a park, which is cool. Oh, and the park, oh, there's also drink stalls, I forgot to mention. There's stalls that just sell drinks and alcohol, but not like hard liquor like beer. They have like, but they'll be selling drinks, and they'll be selling like Pepsi and these weird European drinks like, not Fanta, but like something kind of like Fanta. It's really weird. Europeans have different like drink assortments than we have here in America. So what else do we have? So yeah, there's that. What did I forget to mention? I don't think that was it. Yeah, city facilities. It's a well-functioning city. This is the center of the city, though. You don't have any of this stuff out in the outskirts. Well, not really the outskirts, but the Soviet housing hellhole that I lived in. No drink stalls, no drink stalls, no ice cream stalls, no coffee stalls. Oh, public bathrooms. They don't have public bathrooms. Damn it. Okay, that I have to mention is a con. No public bathrooms. There was one public bathroom that I found. I found it in the city center on the big plaza. I don't know how to say it in English. It's like the Plaza of Independence, Maidan Niezależności, that plaza. And and honestly, this was the worst bathroom ever. I don't know, I don't even understand how a bathroom could be this poorly kept. Not only that, but I had to pay to get in. I had to pay them like $2, well, two in their currency, to get into that place. And it sucked. Ugh. Why? It was just, it smelled horrible, it wasn't clean, it was just disgusting, and I don't understand why. And they didn't even have toilet paper. You actually had to ask the person who lets you in for toilet paper. They didn't have toilet paper built into the friggin' bathroom. What the hell kind of third world bathroom was this, honestly? No, a third world bathroom is just a tree, but like, or a jungle. But this was a second world bathroom. Not fun, not a fun experience. Another thing about the city, no hot water. That's right. Okay, so there's probably hot water in the city center. There's probably hot water downtown if you're staying at like a fancy hotel. There was no hot water at my grandmother's house. No hot water whatsoever. Why? Because the government turned it off. Why did the government turn it off? Well, that actually has to do with the war. You see, Russia, okay, they have hot water, which is powered through natural gas. That's where they get heating, natural gas. Where do they get their natural gas? Russia. There's a pipeline that goes from Russia into Europe, and every country in Europe basically gets their natural gas from Russia. Russia has control over it, and so of course they turned it off when those economic sanctions went in to stop Russia from causing havoc in Ukraine. So there's no hot water. Now granted, there's natural gas saved up, but the government decided to not use it now in the summer because, well, to conserve gas, because they're going to need it in the winter when it's cold. And man, that is frustrating. The plumbing is disappointing, to say the least, even with hot water, but to actually not have hot water was horrible. What we had to do was we had to do some some barbaric shit. We had to heat water in a tub on the stove. Sorry, not a tub, like a, I don't even know what to call, a cauldron on the stove with electricity, and then use that in the bath whilst showering. We had to pour the hot water from the stove onto our bodies. It was awful. It was the worst part of the trip by far. The no hot water thing. Oh dear God, why? Damn it, Russia, why do you do this? Anyway, so if you get past that, if you're staying at like the Hyatt or whatever hotel they have there, the hot water will be fine. What else do we have? Okay. So this is pretty much a con, but the way cars work, let's just say that, the way cars work in this country makes no sense. It blows my fucking mind, okay? Because here's what it is. There's like, okay, there's stoplights, right? But there's no stoplights for pedestrians. There's just like a path that says you can walk by as a pedestrian. You know, if you walk by on this path, you have the right of way. However, there's no like light that tells the cars to stop when there's pedestrians walking. So when you're walking, they're still trying to get through, and they will nudge your legs. They will actually try to get through as you're walking by. It's kind of scary because you can't just walk on the street and be perfectly safe and secure and think, okay, none of the cars can pass by. But as soon as you walk out, like past this one car that's right beside you, it'll just ram itself right by. The guy hits the pedal. He hits the fucking gas and zooms by at like 88 miles an hour. Like, immediately. It's terrifying the way driving works. It's like, it's not even congested. The driving isn't congested. The driving is just aggressive. It's like everyone's trying to get somewhere in a hurry, and they want to cause harm. They want to cause pain. It's terrifying. I was, God damn it. I remember I was getting my stuff out of the bus that I took from the airport, and like the bus was like this, and I had to go around the bus, you know, onto the side that was adjacent to the road, because my stuff, my suitcase was in that side. And I swear to God, there's cars ramming by at 88 miles an hour right beside me. One of this guy nicked my asshole with his with like the mirror on his car, just zipped right by, ran a red light, almost crashed into like 3 cars, hit a pole, killed himself. It was pretty sad. I walked over there and saw him die, bleed to death. I felt really bad. I went to his funeral. He seemed like a pretty good guy. I met his daughter. She was pretty, and we kind of hit that off. And a few years later, we got married and had a few kids, but turns out she was a cheating bitch. She took the kids, and we got a divorce. And that's why, people, stay away from guns. No. But the point is, the drivers are horrifying. They are horrible, horrible people. I don't understand. And sometimes, like, there's no... The main difference is that, okay, here, pedestrians have the right of way. If you're walking on this path, literally no car can cross this path. If they do, they are in violation of like a bunch of traffic laws or something. But here, they just zip right by you when you're walking on that path. You know, basically, the only part of the path that is safe is the actual space zone that you are walking in at the time. Not the entire path, just the place where you are, where your 2 legs stand. And that's a little disconcerting, because on either side of you, cars can be going left and right like crazy. They basically try to hit people. Like, it's crazy. Really, really don't trust the drivers there. So there's that, and that's pretty much just a con, and you really just have to deal with that. I think there's one more. Okay, so this con leads me into a pro, and this is a pretty big pro, but I don't know how simply to say this, but pretty much, oh God, oh dear God, oh dear God, the women. I'm gonna try not to sound creepy here, but the women of Kiev, the women of Ukraine, there are no words. There are no words to explain what grace has given to me to look onto such beauty and wonder and serenity and feel lucky. God damn. Like, the women there are so damn pretty compared to the women here. No offense, Canadian women, but seriously, I don't know what the hell happened here. Canada? Okay, here's what happens in Canada. They basically took people from all the countries in the world and they threw them together in a cauldron and then just smashed it around with like the ladle and just poured it all over the map. That's what we have. And it ain't pretty. I'm sorry. The women there are so much prettier. 7 minimum. 7 minimum. Like in a rank from 7 out of 10, if you're going to do that, if you're going to rank women 7 out of 10, 7 minimum. Okay, if they're below 30 years of age and above 20, 7 minimum. Easy 7 minimum. 8s, 9s are regular. You see 10s occasionally. And by the way, they're not all rich either. They live in those Soviet houses that I lived in, that my grandmother lives in, that all these like old, disgusting people live in. They live in those, and they're still so gorgeous. It's blowing my mind. It blows my mind because over here, beauty is pretty much synonymous with wealth. If a girl is pretty and in her 20s, you expect her to be affluent, you expect her to be rich, or at least have a rich boyfriend, or a good-looking, or a boyfriend who has an adequate income, okay? Over there, holy crap, they live in these dirt hole, shithole buildings and they still look gorgeous and they put on all this makeup. It's not even just that they are naturally prettier, although there's an element of that, but they try to look pretty as well. They put on a lot of makeup, they wear dresses, they're wearing clubbing outfits at like 1 p.m. in the day, walking around the city like they're gonna go to a club, only they're not. If their clubbing outfits are the same, I can't imagine what their clubbing outfits look like if their regular outfits look like our clubbing outfits. Like, I see girls that go to clubs here in the city, and they're wearing like the most scantily clad, tight-ass piece of like leather or just nylon or something. You have chicks that wear that shit in the day regularly, just walking around, and they wear these massive earrings that are the size of like fingers and I don't know, okay? These enormous earrings that just hang down like this, and they have all this makeup, and it's all pretty, and oh my god. And they're not just all blondes too. All these hair colors, there's blondes, and then these like really gorgeous like brunettes, and then brown hair, and light brown hair, and this really dark, like awesome black hair. Like, I've seen, like, you don't really see women with black hair, like Asian level black, only on white chicks, and that's awesome. And the redheads, oh dear god. Oh dear god, the redheads. Oh my god, the redheads, there's so many of them. There's no redheads here. There's no redheads here in Canada. They have died out. They have all died out. That gene pool is empty. There's redheads walking around like crazy, and these are all like 8s, 9s, 10s redheads. And I really love redheads, I'm sorry. I'm trying to not to sound creepy, but oh my god, the redheads. I really miss them, you know, I miss them. They're like Ireland and Kiev. Ireland and Eastern Europe, the only places left in the world where you could find redheads. And like all kinds of red, like ginger, auburn, like crimson, it's crazy. God, what a country. That's really the best part of this. That's really, if there's any reason I'd say to go to Ukraine, it's to bang Ukrainian women. Just gonna be honest, if there's really the most enticing reason for a man to go to Ukraine, to Kiev, would be to do that. Just being honest, I think there's other merits. I think the city's actually kind of cool and nice to look at, and that's what I did. I did not bang any of the women, unfortunately. I tried. And actually, by the way, speaking their language does help, and another thing that helps is being from Canada or here from the West and talking about that. Because they dig that shit. There's this whole like thing where they try to marry people over here in Canada and the States, and I think my mother's cousin did that. Anyway, well, okay, not all of them do that. They're not all horrible and shallow, but I'm sure like the fact that you're from here in the West would be interesting to them. Oh my god, the women. They all take the subway too. They take the subway, the dirty ass subway. Well, subway's not that dirty. Subway's just, it's pretty much like our subway. But they take the subway. You don't see them, I mean, you see, okay, I'm wrong, you do see women here in the subway. but it's less. And there's this weird stigma. I don't know why. Okay, maybe it's my personal experience, because I know a girl, and she took the subway once, and she's like, I don't know, she's like spoiled or something. She's like, oh my god, I had to take the subway. It was horrible. Like, oh, I'm so sorry that you had to, you know, endure a regular commute once in your life. Yeah. Anyway, the point is, I feel like here, that would be the reaction for a 10. And this girl was pretty pretty. Over there, it's like, yeah, man, I'll take the subway, whatever. I'll live in this Soviet Union housing, no problem. I'll have cold water showers and drink and eat pierogies and borscht and shit. What a country. What a country. It's a pretty good place. All things considered, net positive. All things considered, meh. There's enough annoying stuff there that as soon as I'm there, I immediately want to come back here and just live here and get in front of my computer and just like take in the Western civilization first world. That said, I'm pretty much going to close this off. Hope you enjoyed that. Hopefully that made you laugh a little. I do want to mention the war though. I'm going to say this outright. Russia is horrible for what's happening now. And I could go into more detail about what that is, but I'm basically 100% on Ukraine's side in this, and I think Russia should stop whatever it's doing, because it's definitely doing something to propagate this thing and cause more violence and cause more war. And it's a very, very bad thing. I'm not going to go as far as to say what a lot of people say, what a lot of Ukrainians say, what a lot of Ukrainians there say, and what a lot of people in my family say. And what they say is that there is a fundamental difference between Ukrainians and Russians, and that the Russian people themselves have something in their genes that has made them culturally antiquated, let's just say. I'm not going to go that far, but there is that opinion there, and that stuff is pretty bad, and my heart goes out to Ukraine, and given that it's a place I lived, and I still love to an extent, and my extended family lives there, I wish them best of luck to get out of this hellhole and wrench themselves free from, you know, the slimy grasp of an imperialistic dictator, you know, tyranny that you have over there in the East. Wish them luck. Seriously, good luck to that. And hey, go Ukraine. Maybe go there once in your life. That's all I'll recommend. That's it. Good game out. Bye, guys.